Hi, everyone. Yeah, there you go. Hi, everyone. My name's Elizabeth Hart, and I'm the EVP of People at Axon. We are sponsoring today's panel, which we are super excited about. What you just saw in that video is more than just a story. It's a signal. Axon's here in Boston not just as a company that is growing, but one that's invested in building something meaningful, something mission-driven, and something that starts with people. You see, public safety is at this critical inflection point. We live in a world where technology is advancing faster than policy can keep up with. And yet, the stakes have never been higher. Communities are demanding more innovation, more technology, and more accountability. Leaders are being asked to solve complex problems in bold new ways. And at the heart of it all is one human truth. We all want the same thing. Law enforcement, civilians, families, parents of kids in schools. We all want to feel safe. We all want to get home safe. This is a fundamental right. It's not a privilege. Alongside our partners, Axon, we are driving forward with a bold moonshot. We hope to cut gun-related deaths between police and the public by 50% in the next decade. And we will do so leveraging AI, drones, robotics, and virtual reality, making innovation turn into real impact. And to make this all happen, we need the best and the brightest. Over the years, we've hired a ton of talent from Boston, where we've found wicked smart people. Many of our senior leaders attended local schools here. And in 2024, we opened up a 22,000 square foot office in Back Bay. We've built this space with intention, not just to hire talent, but to develop it, to mentor it, and to give it the tools to build for the future of public safety. We've got multiple senior leaders that have relocated to the area, inclusive of our president, Josh Isner. And this office is expected to be a core driver of innovation, not just a branch of it. It reflects our commitment to being part of Boston's long-term innovation economy. We're here to solve really complex, hard problems. Problems that government is shying away from, problems that other companies are shying away from. That's our edge. That's what makes us different. Boston and Axon share something essential, a belief that innovation should serve the public good. That's the kind of city we want to grow in, and that's the kind of future we want to build together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shirley for our panel.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I'm Shirley Leung. I'm a columnist, a business columnist with the Boston Globe, and I host the Globe's Say More podcast. We're diving into a favorite topic of mine about how to attract, retain, and grow top talent in the region. We just heard from the last panel how important that is, and part of Boston's and Massachusetts' secret sauce. And I've got an extra special lineup. We have an all-female panel, so this is awesome to talk about this topic. So sitting right next to me is Georgie Campbell-Flatter. She's the new CEO of Greentown Labs, which bills itself as North America's largest incubator, climate tech incubator, all in nearby Somerville. Right next to her is Deborah Livermore. She's the Executive Director of Career Advising and Professional Development at MIT. And then last but not least is Christina Luconi. She's the former Chief People Officer at Rapid7, and now she's the People Innovator at a consultancy she founded called People Innovations. So thank you for all of you for joining us today. I have a few questions, but of course, you guys can also ask questions too, so just scan your QR code. So we'll be here for about like 25 minutes talking. So there are certain economic headwinds right now. I mean, you know, all around us, driven by tariff wars and political uncertainty, but there are also tailwinds too. And I was really surprised about this in our prep call talking about this. I mean, namely tech companies are hiring. And so, Georgie, can you talk about what you're seeing among the startups at Greentown Labs? I mean, because all the headlines are about how the Trump administration is pulling back on federal climate tech funding and programs.
Yeah, absolutely. And first, just wanted to take the opportunity to thank Boston Globe and Axon for allowing us to put a spotlight on this topic, and also to have Greentown as part of the conversation. We don't just consider ourselves the largest climate and energy incubator in the world, but we consider ourselves a talent engine for driving climate tech and energy innovation. And what that means to us is, for those, I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with Greentown, but you may not be familiar that we're going into our 15th year. Next year, we've supported around 600 companies now. They've raised collectively about $8.2 billion, created 14,000 jobs. Most have either here in the Massachusetts ecosystem or in Houston. And I think the momentum there that we're seeing isn't stopping. It's not stopping. It's going and it's continuing into 2025, despite what we're hearing and seeing through these kind of headwinds. And of course, there's no denying the headwinds, but I think it's also, we're seeing undeniable momentum here. Climate is a lens that touches all industries. And we're seeing, whether it's manufacturing, energy, construction, critical minerals, the list goes on. And, I think that what's driving our community today, when you see or hear kind of the more energy, less emissions kind of tagline, right? Like, what does that mean? And it is the defining challenge of our time, whether it's AI, electrification, energy poverty, right? We've still got 1.2 billion people without access to reliable energy today, and that is opening up huge opportunities across the sectors, and it's driving good jobs, and it's driving good innovation. Last year, 2024, I believe, there was about $2.1 trillion that was injected into the climate tech sector. We're still building on that and leveraging that investment. For Greentown, just to make that real, we've had over 100 applications already into Greentown in 2025. Collectively, current members of Greentown have raised about $40 million. If you include the alumni, you're talking $800 million. And that's just in 2025. If you go onto our job, we've got a website that's and a page that's dedicated to careers. We have about 150 jobs that we've posted this year, or that there's currently 150 jobs posted. So there's a lot of excitement and momentum. It's not slowing down, but we need to, I think, elevate that message to the community so that we can kind of continue supporting and driving that momentum moving forward.
And Christina, in your world, I mean, how would you characterize the hiring mood among Boston area tech startups? Are folks cautious or they're feeling pretty good?
I don't know that anyone's feeling pretty good in this particular moment, but I would say they're still hiring. There's still great people to be had, and I think we'll probably get into this a little bit later. But I think what I'm seeing is people are hiring, but they're spending extra time looking for the right person. It's not enough to have the skills anymore, and we're certainly, backdoor to so much talent. There's incredible talent here. But a resume does not equal the best possible person for your company. So I think the companies that are scaling and growing in a really healthy way are taking the time to really find the best possible people to help grow their companies.
And Deborah, what are you seeing from your vantage point? I mean, what about the job prospects of this year's college graduates?
To begin, a lot of us just had graduation a few weeks ago. And so, they focused on graduation first, make sure they can, leave their university, and they're just starting to look for opportunities now. Now, of course, there are some companies that do a lot of advanced hiring, and so there's jobs to be had. We just had a career fair in April, and it was just amazing where companies may not have been hiring in the fall, they were definitely hiring now. And they were just waiting just to see what happens and to see what their needs are. Now, if you have a new grad, it may not feel like companies are hiring, and that's because, like Georgia said, it's a harder process. There's more applications. If you're in human resources in any company, you know that for every job you're probably getting thousands, and that's because it's just so easy to apply to jobs now. People are using ChatGPT to blank apply, and so therefore you have to filter out the candidates that you want. So companies do have to spend more time getting the right candidates, but there are opportunities out there.
I mean, do you think that today's college graduate, I mean, of course, you represent MIT, I'm sure it's a little bit different when you're MIT. Everybody wants to hire an MIT grad, I think, right? Still.
There's a reason, right?
But maybe now, to Christina's point, I mean, maybe now, maybe companies can afford to be selective, so maybe you don't have your first pick of the company you want to work for, or I don't know if today's graduates are more picky about where they start their first job.
Well, I don't know if they're more picky. I think it takes more time. And so because it takes more time, they have to put more effort in it. Regardless whether it's MIT or any other university, every student is just having to put more effort, and so it feels like more work. And therefore, like you think you're out there and you think there are no jobs, and it may take what used to be like 2 or 3 months, might take 6 months, just because the process is a lot more intense and it's a lot slower.
So a few years ago, many of us were working from home, right? And a few years ago, employers were scrambling to find good candidates, right? And now, we're seeing strong applicant pools again. And we all know that attracting talent is just part of the challenge. I mean, the other big one is retention. And I want to bring kind of the elephant in the room I know a lot of employers are talking about, which is, I mean, what about, how do we deal with these hybrid workplaces or remote work? I mean, how are tech employers kind of navigating kind of the push and pull between, offering flexibility like remote work, but I know a lot of employers also want to bring their employees back into the office. And Christina, I know this is your hobby horse. You like to talk about this. Maybe we start off with you.
I need a cocktail in 3 hours to tackle this one, but. Honestly, I think it goes so beyond remote work. I think ultimately companies have to stop, it's going to be a fairly divisive thing to say, apologies ahead of time, but I think companies have to stop catering to what everybody wants. It's become a very me-focused society, and we have to balance the me with the we. So I look at founders and these like brilliant CEOs who are trying to grow companies saying, I'm struggling to hire people because they're interviewing and saying, what do you mean I have to come into the office 2 or 3 days a week? I'm out. Are you kidding me? When I was 22 years old, I was just like, teach me, learn, and I sound like a dinosaur pointing that out. But it's fascinating to me that people are putting such a premium, not everybody, but a lot of candidates are putting a premium on what's best for them rather than the ability to contribute to this amazing, innovative ecosystem that we have in Boston. So for me, I think companies really have to spend time figuring out who they are and who they aspire to be and hold a very high bar in terms of who they bring into the company and balance, obviously we all have our personal needs to be met. We all have to make reasonable salaries and learn and grow and develop our careers, and all of that is really important. But you have to be selecting people that actually want to be on the mission with you, or I would suggest our innovation economy is going to start to plummet. I feel so strongly, I've spent my entire career in startups and building startups in Boston, and they've gone pretty well. But I quit my job because I want to solve this problem. I think there's a balance that needs to be had between employers really understanding, who they are and how to build their companies through the human components of their business, and to turn the table on employees and really help them recapture what can make work really special.
So I'm going to agree, and I'm going to add something just from the college graduate perspective, which is college graduates, they graduate college with a lot of loans, right? And Boston is not the most affordable city to live in. And so if I'm a new college grad, if I'm not living with 5 people in Brighton, then I'm all the way out and, somewhere. And one of the things, you talked about matching, and that's what we want. We want the applicant and the company to be a match for each other. And so companies really have to start to think about this new generation of workers and what they're being faced, especially in the Boston area. And so I work in education. We have flexibility, but we also don't get paid that much. And that's how I bring people in, is by saying, you get to work 2 days from home, I may not pay you as much. And so there's a balance there, and you have to figure out what you want.
I completely agree with you. I'm
Absolutely.
not saying remote is
Yeah,
bad, but
yeah.
I think it's coming out as having the gumption as in a first interview, just saying, this is what I'm not going to do, is very different.
Well,
than what I
yeah,
think what
we,
you're
we
saying.
have to do more training about
we
how
do. Yeah,
to
help them.
advocate and communicate your needs. But I also feel like tech companies, finance companies, they also have lives, right? And I can't work for you till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then you expect to see me at 7 o'clock in the morning. I need some time to take care of my family and the things. And so there's a balance there, and it really is about matching the applicant with the workplace and what works for them,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I think from the Greentown perspective and climate and energy, like you can't Zoom a prototype, right? Like if you're in tough tech, hard tech, atoms matter, brick and mortar matters. And I think that there's ways, at least what we see at Greentown is that there are ways to bring young people in. Once they feel and experience the community, they thrive in it and they enjoy it. And yes, there is there are remote policies that we're starting to see companies adopt, maybe work from home a couple of days a week, or shift the timing so you can avoid the traffic. But I think, and actually there are programs, for example, Mass CEC sponsors an internship program. We have currently about 50 interns from the Boston area, either at Greentown or within our member community. And that's a great way to get folks who are curious about climate and energy, but may not have the experience, to kind of embed themselves in this community, and then they connect to the mission, and they will then, and what we see often is that they will dedicate their whole careers to this sector. But it's about drawing them in interesting ways so they can, I guess, get exposed to what it means to be part of a community.
I totally agree. But being intentional about what you want, what your bar for the company is, what you're trying, it is really important, because how can you match if you don't know?
I mean, we have a really good question from the audience related to remote work. With the rise of remote work, why does it matter to keep hiring Boston? Isn't it actually limiting if we just pick people who are here? So I don't know. Maybe Deborah, you probably deal with this, right?
Not much.
I mean, not at MIT, but with students deciding whether
Yeah.
to stay here or go somewhere else, right?
Well, again, it depends on the company. I mean, most companies, they still want to see you at some point. So, I think it just depends. Like, who do you want in your workforce? If you're if you're a company where you have to understand the local culture, then yes, it's important that you have Boston, right? But if it is not as important, then it may allow you to branch out.
Yeah, I agree. I also think one of the reasons for wanting to continue to hire is there's some of the best and the brightest people here. And we want to hang on to those. I agree, at some point, even if you have a remote or a hybrid environment, you still have to get people together. And we're seeing the backlash. 5 years ago, we saw so many companies ask their people, hey, what do you want as we come back from the pandemic? And I thought, oh my gosh, like if I ask my kids what they want for dinner, I'm gonna get different answers and piss somebody off. So how can that work? And we're seeing the backlash from that, where so many companies have said, that didn't work. Every company come back 5 days a week. And what that resulted in was a lot of people quitting, because they have no trust built with their company anymore. In my viewpoint, especially if you're hiring all this young talent, some amount, like hybrid for me is the way to go, because you need to build community, who you're going to learn from, who are you going to build relationships with, who's going to take a bet on you. That is incredibly hard to do over Zoom. It can be done, we can get stuff done, but get stuff done does not equal creating real impact in my mind. So I think there's a real advantage if you are hybrid or in office, remaining, still hiring out of Boston, because there's such incredible talent here.
I want to agree with that, and I also want to add that what a lot of young professionals want is mentorship, and that mentorship is hard to do via Zoom, and so you do have to be in person sometimes in order to understand fully what that person is capable of, but also the development that they need.
So one of the things we've talked about all day long at this tech summit is how Massachusetts is a very special place. I mean, we have this incredible collection of 100 colleges and universities. We have the best and brightest from all over the world studying here every year. And then icing on the cake is to have MIT and Harvard here, right? The very best of the very best. And many of these students, they come here and they stay and work and they start companies. But now there's a lot of political uncertainty. I mean, around the future of international students, even work visas. And so I was just wondering, how has this uncertainty affected your ability to recruit foreign students or foreign talent? And is there anything you can do about it? And Georgie, maybe you could tackle this first, because you're a transplant. I mean, right? Based on your accent. So talk a little bit about what it would take to keep foreign talent here.
Yeah, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunity to have had the opportunity back in, I think, 2008 now, to come to Massachusetts. I came over as a student had a student placement in the Langer Lab at MIT, and I was drawn into Massachusetts and MIT because of the global reputation that we have here for innovation, but also kind of the practical application of innovation. I was coming from a kind of the theoretical world of material science and engineering, and really wanted to find a way to kind of make the technology that I was working on matter. Every day in the Langer Lab, even as an undergrad, they were driving this point of make the technology matter to the patient, and I think that is embedded in the kind of Massachusetts mindset. It goes well beyond the mens at manus that we promote at MIT. It's this greater purpose that we have here in Massachusetts for making a difference with the technology and the business. We're talking about job creation here. Here in Massachusetts, it's not just about jobs, it's about good jobs. And because the technology companies here are driving and have this kind of greater purpose. And I think, when you tie that back to kind of what we can do here to kind of keep global talent, of course, we need to continue to be welcoming. And, the J1, F1 visa was critical for me. Back in, I ended up then in 2017, one of the proudest moments of my life, in addition to having my 3 children, was standing there in Faneuil Hall and becoming a US citizen, and proud, wanting to stay here. I did leave the ecosystem for 6 years, went back to the UK, and I'm now back here in my first 100 days as Greentown CEO. But I came back because Massachusetts is sticky. Like you find your people here, and you're not alone when it comes to wanting to kind of make a difference, and I guess seeing that the possible is possible, and you feel that here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, what are you seeing, Christina, from your clients? I mean, is all the political uncertainty scaring
I think there's
away?
a lot of concern. I think I haven't seen it play out yet, but I've seen a ton of concern about hiring people. So we're seeing a lot of talent leave Boston, and places opening offices in lower cost areas. And candidly, that's, if I look at my Rapid7 experience, one of the reasons we just opened in India earlier this year was because It's obviously a little bit less expensive to do business there with the talent. But also, like, why are we going to spend, this is a horrible way to think about the world, but why are we going to spend 250 grand on somebody who's begging to work 3 days a week? I'm not talking remote. I'm just saying, you know, I want a 3 or 4 day work week and whatever, rather than people that are willing to do it for a fraction of the cost and are so excited about it. I hate that that's happening in our world, but that's how businesses are responding. So I'm really concerned if the visa situation plays out the way I think it's going to.
You know, Boston is home to 100 colleges, and I would say many of the colleges are concerned about their international student enrollment for the next year. And it does, for some schools, it's make or break. And so that is a concern that they can continue to come here. But also, as you said, continue to be able to get work here. And, you know, so I am concerned, and we'll have to wait and see what happens.
All right, last question for me. So Governor Maureen Healey is joining us later today at this Globe Summit, and she's going to close out the summit today. And what's a call to action you'd give her? I mean, something the Healey administration can do to make Massachusetts an even stronger hub for tech innovation and better at recruiting and retaining top talent. So, Georgie, we'll start with you and go down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it's important for us to recognize that Governor Healey and Massachusetts already do a phenomenal job here in Massachusetts, and you know, we feel that every day at Greentown and the support of the state. You know, I think from Greentown's perspective, you know, we want to continue being this talent engine for the clean tech and climate and energy ecosystem. I think we want to continue to go deeper within our own communities. So the internship program that I mentioned is such a great program, but there's more that we can do to connect in. You know, if we have a high school student tour Greentown and they get this kind of entrepreneurial itch, you change their life, right? And so I think there's more we can do to go deeper within the local community. And then, of course, I think it's how do we continue to go outwards, welcoming folks in through intentional policies and other things, but also this mindset of reaching outwards and continuing that knowledge and talent exchange across different ecosystems. You know, at MIT, I was involved in programs such as MIT REAP and Legatum, and where MIT was kind of taking the magic of what we do here and trying to find ways to bring it to other regions. And that wasn't just because we were pushing our ideas on these different places. We learned just as much from the regions that we were collaborating with. And I think that's a really important kind of spirit of what we do here. And how do we, it's more of a question than a call to action, but how do we continue to build those bridges? In Greentown, we have a hub in Houston that we founded 4 years ago now. And we continue to see the benefit of bringing our frontier innovators here in Massachusetts together with more, you know, established legacy players in Houston. And that enriches both ecosystems. And I think the intentionality, to use your word, of how we can continue to bridge build, both here in the United States as well as around the world, is really critical.
Okay, I have 3 things, but it's for 3 different groups. For MIT, what they would want me to say is we need research here in Boston. The research dollars are leaving the universities and the hospitals. It's going to affect innovation. It's going to affect our schools. We have to have it here. For the students, our new college graduates, I know that they would want me to say, we have to do something about housing, right? We get them here. If you want to keep them here, then we have to make housing much more affordable. And then my own selfish thing I would ask for is I am a pay equity person, so she signed the salary transparency bill last year, so let's continue making efforts to make pay transparent for all people.
I agree with everything they just said, so I don't have a ton to add, but I guess I'll focus on the mindset element of it, right? I'm somebody who grew up in Boston with ties. My dad has 3 degrees from MIT. That was not my path. So, but I figured out how I could be involved in tech as not a technologist. And you're right, like somebody walks in, you're a high school student, you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. we have such rabid fans for our sports teams in Boston. If we could create that same kind of community and energy around the innovation economy here, I think we'd be unstoppable. But somewhere along the line, I feel like we've been playing catch up versus, there's still, probably for a lot of us sitting in this room, going back to the conversation from the other panel, we elected to stay in Boston. Of course there's a gravitational pull to the Bay Area. I intentionally decided not to do that when all my friends out of school went there, because there's something really special about this. And it's still a small enough community where you know a lot of people. It's a wonderful group of people that I've found to be incredibly inclusive, willing to help each other, support each other's businesses. It's been pretty special. We have to optimize around that. And instead, I feel like we're just in fight mode versus how do we make this flourish together? If we could get people as excited about this community and the contributions to it as we do about the Celtics, man, we'd be unstoppable.
Well, thank you very much. I think about, I guess we need duck boat parades for all of us, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, thank you, Christina. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Georgie. This has been a great panel.